in person.
Hi.
Hi, Angela. Great to be with you.
Good, how are you?
Thank you for having us.
Angela welcomed DIA Chief Historian Paul Isaacson into her home for an enlightening discussion about her experiences as a remote viewer at the Defense Intelligence Agency.
I'm Angela Dellafiora Ford, and I was remote viewer 079 in the Defense Intelligence Agency's program, Stargate.
So let's start by asking you, at what point in your life did you realize that you had these, I guess, special abilities?
At a very young age.
How did you know?
Because I was doing things that other people weren't. But I also knew intuitively not to talk about it.
Why not?
Because people wouldn't understand.
Can you share with us just an example of something that was happening there?
Well, I would have a lot of out-of-body experiences. And I think my mother was the only one I would tell because it just intuitively, I just knew. You couldn't tell this to other kids. But I did notice at certain times in my life, and maybe at school break or when things I wasn't so busy learning new things, it would come in again. The psychic abilities would come in again.
Now, as I understand it, you came to realize you had a third eye.
Well, it's a third eye opening.
Tell us what it means to have a third eye.
Well, it's one of your chakra centers. Sometimes you just know things. It's more like it just comes into the body or it comes into the mind. But when the third eye opens, you see it. Information is out there and it hits the mind. It's like a mental feat. So information is out in the ethers, and so you're picking up information and it comes into the mind, and then you verbally say what you're seeing.
So there was this term out there, remote viewers, that was being used at Fort Meade and other places, but you identified yourself as a psychic. Was that an issue?
No, when they said you're a remote viewer is fine to me because that's what the government said. They had to say something when they went to Congress to get the money because remote viewing and remote viewer sounds better than, hey, we're using psychics. I understood that.
During 10 years on the job, there were days when Angela was asked once, or possibly twice, to have a remote viewing session. And there were plenty of instances where she was unsuccessful. But there were times when she was quite accurate. Two examples in particular brought attention to Angela and the program. The first was when she gave the FBI location information about a former DEA agent who had gone rogue. The next was when she identified the name of a ship off the coast of Libya almost to the letter. That ship contained chemical weapons capable of mass destruction.
I suppose I could phrase this as the elephant in the room. There are certainly skeptics of psychic abilities, right? There are plenty of people that will listen to this and wonder how is this possible, or they'll have their doubts. So much of our work depends on facts and so forth. So how would you respond to those folks who may doubt this?
When I worked for the government, for DIA, we didn't mind skeptics. The reason being is if somebody is skeptic and they still wanted to use us, that was fine. And if we were able to give a good product or something worked out to help people, that was fine. What we found is that if people were really against it and it caused a lot of anger, that wasn't good for us. And a lot of times people are so against it because it goes against their belief system. So if somebody was really against us or didn't believe in it, we were better off. We didn't want them as customers. They were going to do more damage to us. Having a skeptic, we could deal with. Then on the other side, you had people that just believed in us 100%, and that wasn't good either because they would just run with the information without checking it out either.
You gave me something new. I wasn't aware that was also a concern.
A skeptic isn't bad. A skeptic isn't bad.
And trusting it 100% is not good either.
No, it isn't. Because actually our information should have been working with the other intelligence collection methods.
In her book, Phenomena, Annie Jacobson writes this about Angela. Quote, "There was no question that Angela's work was favored above other viewers. Her results were being shared in congressional meetings, in intelligence committee meetings, and in briefings across the military and intelligence communities. Her intelligence information was more likely to be considered by analysts, and she continued to get more tasks and produce actionable results."
Walk us through, very simply, what the process was that you used to do your job.
We had our desks and offices, and then there was a second building that you would walk over, and there were couches, there were big sofas, there were some beds, there were dark rooms with red lights, and it was quiet. And I would have to put myself in a self-hypnotic state where I had to go down and relax. And when you go down, you start visualizing. The person known as the monitor would give me 4, 5, 6 minutes, maybe 8 minutes. And then he would say, "Please access and describe the information in the sealed envelope known as Target A." So there is something in that envelope. It's either a picture, it's either a picture of a person. There could be a question. It could be just a written question, but there's something in that envelope that I need to answer. And then I would come out and I would draw pictures and write a report.
$2,865. That's how many remote viewing sessions were documented over the lifetime of the program. And that number was the result of being tasked by 19 different agencies.
When you're solving a problem, you get a focus. And this energy will come in and it will give you the focus, but that focus only lasts for so long. So you got to get in there and you've got to get that answer and you've got to come out. When that focus leaves you, then you're out of it and everything else starts coming in, and then you don't know. It's like you just know when you have it, and then you've got to come out, which I think would frustrate a lot of the people that I worked for, because they wanted more. They always wanted more information, or they wanted me to stay in longer, and by that, then you're making stuff up.
Thank you for explaining that. I never understood how that worked. So you were like, get in and get out.
Get out, yeah. 20, 30, 40 minutes. Anything after 40 minutes in a session, when you're into 50 minutes in an hour, then you're you're either repeating the information or you're into imagination, especially on locations. If people want to know where something is, you don't need to describe where it is. You need to say where it is. You say where it is. So you got to get in there and say where it is and get out. And I think it would just drive people crazy because, it's management, it's government, they want reports.
Did your targets or missions change over time, especially with the fall of the Soviet Union in '91? Did you start getting different missions?
We were big on the Soviet Union structures, fixed sites they called them. We have a building here. What's going on in that building? I think there was one remote viewer, Joe McMonigal, that worked there before me. I think he remote viewed, the first nuclear submarine that the Soviet Union's built. So a lot of it was fixed sites, which I did in extended remote viewing. Prior to 1991, when I started to do my channeling, I started to do hostages. I did a lot of the hostages in Lebanon because the channeling or the written remote viewing also lent itself to personalities.
So did you have a specialty, and can you give us an example of how that might have worked?
I had a specialty. My specialty was known as automatic writing or channeling, and they called it written remote viewing. If somebody was looking for something, it was good for locational work because I could tell you where something or someone was. It's better than a description. If you're looking for someone and I say, I see a tree in a mountain, well, that could be anywhere. If you're looking for someone and I can tell you a name, that's going to help you. That was my specialty.
Angela was a shining star in Stargate, but her efforts weren't enough to sustain it. During the 1990s, due to several factors, the new DIA management was not keen on the program, leading to disarray. In February 1995, this led to a congressionally directed action that called for a transfer of the program to the CIA, where it was unceremoniously canceled after an independent study concluded that, quote, enough accurate remote viewing experiences existed to defy randomness, but that the phenomenon was too unreliable, inconsistent, and sporadic to be useful for intelligence purposes, end quote. That's the official reason for ending it. Unofficial reasons run the gamut from politics, money, unrealistic expectations, lack of consistent positive results, to just too many naysayers.